We've talked about be love, and we've talked about be light. And for this particular Sunday, I have chosen the topic of be whole. To be whole. And so often when we come to these celebrations, we focus so much on the light, and the light in the face of darkness, and that we are sometimes falling into this idea that light and darkness are actually contending with each other. When, in fact, we recognize if it's all one, and light and dark don't actually exist in the absolute. There are no pairs of opposites in the divine. There are only pairs of opposites in the expression, in creation, and in our experience of creation. In anything that's in form or physical has the pairs of opposites. Day and night, light and dark, up and down. Right? These things actually don't exist in the absolute. They only exist here in our experience. And some of the ways in which our strong identification with the light in our spirituality, sometimes that shows up as that we value our spirituality and we can continue to dismiss, denigrate, or even despise this present way in which we show up in the world. Don't we? Don't we sometimes wish we were better than we are, more than we are? We continue to feel isolated or not worthy, or parts of us that we would just as soon disown or don't feel so great about, that we're constantly seeking to make better or improve. And so we can actually value our spirituality more than we value the totality of who we are. We can falsely over-identify ourselves with our weaknesses, with our dysfunctionality, with our unworthiness. And what I watch us do is that we equate this with the ego. We need to get rid of the ego. The ego is bad, wrong, and which is essentially nonsense. Our ego is simply the psychic structure that we have to manage the space-time continuum, just as our physical body is the form that we use to manage the space-time continuum. It's when we falsely identify with these things as the only part of us that becomes a problem. But when we also only identify with the spiritual part of us, we can seek to overcome, transcend, or in some way get rid of the ego, which also often includes a continued lack of value for our physical being, our bodies, especially all the ways in which women and now men are held up to an ideal, a physical ideal of our body, what it's supposed to look like, and whether or not we're perfect. We hold up our houses up to the magazines. We hold up our lives up to the representations we see in the sitcoms and the movies. Why is it that nobody ever works? I don't really understand. Right? They all have these fabulous houses. They have everything they need, and they don't ever work. It's like, you don't think that's real. I don't think that's real life. And yet, what we do is that we constantly are comparing ourselves to these things that our family has told us, our schools have told us, whatever that is. And we equate our humanness with our bodies, our imperfections, our limitations, and ultimately our mortality. And because it's painful, we don't like to look at it, what we do is that we then project it out on everybody else. So we get to judge others, we get to dislike them, we get to see how different they are from us. and we get to focus on our spirituality and being the light to the best of our ability. Now, this is not a bad thing. We just spent the last 2 weeks talking about be love and be light, right? What we want to do today is to also add be whole, which means we have to capture all of it. So I love these 2 images. If you look at the white image, without the dark table, the black table, it would simply be an unbroken field of nothing, because it would just be white. The black, without the window where the light is shining through, without that window, it would again be a field of nothing, because it would be solid black. We wouldn't be able to see anything. We would not recognize in either field, there would be nothing. Do you see? For the darkness to be evidenced, light has to shine. For the white to be seen, there actually has to be something that isn't the light. Now, this does not make the table bad or the window good. Do you see? They're just the reverse of each other in a way that illuminates something much more. So in the science of mind and in New Thought, we do not see light and darkness as contending with each other. We actually see them as part of what the Hindus call the pairs of opposites. The pairs of opposites from which all life, all created life, is made. The fundamental pair of opposites is space and time. We now have on the quantum level pair of opposites, the wave particle. It's actually said as a single word, wave particle, which helps us realize that these pairs of opposites are actually 2 sides of the same coin. They're complementary. You can't actually have one without having the other. And they're forever intertwining into each other. Basically, they reveal each other, right? Without the window, without the darkness, the window you wouldn't be able to see. Without the white background, the black table would disappear. If those images had been reversed, the light coming through that window would be unrecognizable in a white field. And the dark table would be unseeable in the black field. Yes? Do you see? Now, the blackness isn't there to teach us about the light. Nor is the black table there to teach us about the darkness. They are simply complementary and together make a wholeness. Right? For any of you who have ever studied art, if you've ever looked at art, one of the things, and you do those optical illusions, right? If you ever studied art, one of the things that's so important in art is the negative space. It's actually the negative space that allows you to see whatever it is the artist wants you to pay attention to. But the negative space isn't negative as in bad. It's just not there. It's not the something that is illuminated by the negative space, or that is brought into relief by the negative space. The negative space is equally as important. Without it, nothing catches our eye. Nothing comes into relief. What in the world does this have to do with being whole? What does this have to do with being whole? So people often ask me, Petra, what are you reading these days? So I shared with you a book last week. I'm going to actually share with you 2 other books that I'm working on right now that are really speaking to me. The first one here, I picked up the wrong book, wait a minute, I have these books in the wrong order. I want to use this book first. Sorry, Joseph. I have the books in the wrong order. We're going to the Annam Carter book. So Annam Carter is a book of Celtic wisdom, and it's written by a poet. He's considered the current, expert on Celtic wisdom, and we're using this for our trip to Ireland. And he's in his introduction, he talks about something I think that is very important. He writes this: to be wholesome, we must remain truthful in our... Oh, this is really not going to work. Now, see, I brought my glasses up and they don't work any better. Don't laugh, Jim. I am still working it out, okay? To be wholesome, we must remain truthful to our vulnerable complexity. In order to keep our balance, we need to hold the interior and exterior, ancient and new, together. No one else can undertake this task for you. You are the one and only threshold of an inner world. This wholesomeness is holy. To be holy is to be natural, to befriend the worlds that come in balance in you. The interior and the exterior, the inner and the outer. In the science of mind, we would call this the human and the divine. He goes on to say this: human presence is I can't do this with a mask. That's part of the problem. Sorry, I am working this out. I'm on the 5 days of being masked, so I'm working this out. Human presence is a creative and, I can't read it, I don't exactly know what to do. Will you read it for me? Bakari, come up here and read it for me. Oh my God, you guys are so amazing. See all this little underlined part here.
All right.
You're going to start here, and you're going to read to there. Okay? All right. Here, and we're going to give you a microphone.
Human presence is a creative and turbulent sacrament, a visible sign of invisible grace. Now where else is there such intimate and frightening access to the mysterium? Friendship is the sweet grace that liberates us to approach, recognize, and inhibit this adventure. This book is intended as an oblique mirror in which you might come to glimpse a presence and power of inner and outer friendship. Friendship is a creative and subversive force. It claims that intimacy is the secret law of life and universe. The human journey is a contentious act of transfiguration. If approached in friendship, the unknown, the anonymous, the negative, and the threatening gradually yield their secret affinity with us. As an artist, the human person is permanently active in this revelation. The imagination is the great friend of the unknown. Endlessly, it invokes and releases power of possibility. Friendship, then, is not to be reduced to exclusive or sentimental relationships. It is a far more extensive and intensive force.
Beautiful. Thank you, Bakari. Thank you so much. Yay, good job. I appreciate that. He uses the term friendship. You'll notice that in the next book I'm going to read, they're going to talk about becoming friend. I think of it as befriending. It's befriending this inner and outer reality, right? It's befriending the fact that the Spirit is showing up as us in our very humanness. We're not here to transcend our humanness. Our humanness is the very place where life itself is showing up, where spirit is being expressed and getting to experience that expression. Do you see, to be whole is to befriend the very things that threaten us and frighten us. It is to befriend that within us that we disown, dislike, that we think is not spiritual, that we think somehow is less than. Well, that means we have to befriend our bodies. We have to befriend our egos, right? And there's a really powerful place where we have a healthy ego, and we can't release it and move beyond it until we've actually discovered it. Befriending, this notion of friendship that is so deep in the Celtic tradition. He goes on to say this: the Celtic mind was not burdened by dualism. It did not separate what belongs together. The Celtic imagination articulates the inner friendship that embraces nature and divinity, underworld and overworld, human world as one. The dualism that separates the visible from the invisible, time from eternity, the human from the divine, was totally alien to them. Theoretically, it's also alien to us in the science of mind, when we are fully and deeply engaged in the practice. Because in the science of mind, oneness means wholeness. If we go to our teaching symbol and we see that the circle is oneness, and that bottom portion of our teaching symbol represents physical creation, and it is inside the circle of oneness. So the wholeness of the one includes the invisible and the visible, includes the human and the divine. And so one of the biggest mistakes I think we've ever made in the science of mind, I believe it's a huge mistake Ernest Holmes made, was to focus on the word perfection. Be perfect like your Father in heaven is perfect. I don't know whether that's actually what the translation should say or not, but I think what is meant is be whole. Wholly yourself, wholly and fully everything. The God, the oneness, is in fact wholly and fully everything. From the ant to the quasar, to the profoundest love, to the concept of beauty, to the universal laws that are constantly revealing life through creation. Do you see? It's all part of the one. Nothing is left out in this wholeness. I think we should, and then we've coupled our science of mind idea of perfection with a deep belief in self-help, self-growth, and becoming more, which usually we translate into perfect. And we add that on top of our life and our childhood and our schooling that requires us never to make a mistake. And now we've fallen into perfectionism, which has actually nothing to do with being whole, wholly ourselves. And if you look up the definition of whole in the dictionary, the second one speaks of the integrity, like the integrity of the hull of a ship. Not moral or ethical integrity, but the integrity of the hull of a ship. That means the planks and the rivets and whatever they've used to fill the seams, all disparate pieces become in the integrous joining a whole that allows the boat to float. If that wholeness is breached in any place, the integrity of the whole is broken, we have trouble. You have to start bailing or the boat's going to sink. The science of mind does not seek for us to be perfect. The truth is, from a spiritual point of view, you already are. You are the universe making itself manifest as the individualized expression of the one. The essential you has never been damaged, can't be broken, can't run out of energy. The essential you is always the divine made manifest, but it manifests and lives and breathes and loves and has its being in a finite physical form, which does actually need rest and well-being, which is a place of joy and expression, but is unique. unique in the way in which our individuality has been shaped by our biology, our DNA, our experiences, and how we have come to understand ourselves and our life. To be holy ourselves is to allow that light to shine through this particular stained glass window that we ourselves are. And to not seek to have a stained glass window that looks like some ideal, but rather is the one that is unique to us. To be whole is to recognize that there is no separation between the human and divine. Right? Just like wave particle, it used to be it's either a wave or a particle depending on this or that and the experiment and blah, 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 until all of a sudden they realized, wait, it's the same thing. It's just showing up differently. So it's now one word, wave particle. So I think we should be spirit human. Right? Right. Spirit human. And all of this, what did we say last week? All of this is frozen light, right? So we could call it light matter. Or we could call it spirit matter. Yeah. Right? What we do is we think there's this over here and that over there, and we have to bridge the gap somehow. Or we have to stop being so this and be more of that. It's an unbroken wholeness. We're the only ones who think that there's a separation. In science of mind, we call it a sense of separation. It's not really separate. It's a sense of separation. Left to itself, this is how creation is unfolding. Spirit matter, matter spirit, light matter, matter light. Constantly moving from the invisible to the visible, back to the invisible to the visible. That's the wholeness. For us to be whole is to be wholly ourselves, to be fully recognizing that our lives are an expression of life. It's not required that we're perfect. Right? Right? What's invited is that we're all of who we are. Right? And that the things that are going on in our lives, they aren't somehow dictated so that we will learn a lesson, but we have the opportunity to learn from all of the events and experiences, right? Then when we are whole, our holiness is the creation, the art of our lives. Do we have negative spaces in our lives? Did you hear that as bad? Did you hear it as, oh, do I have pain in my life? Do I have bad things in my life? Should I learn from them? What if a negative space is just not something? What would a negative space be? Oh, maybe rest, maybe quiet, maybe not doing. Maybe the opposite of the hurry, hustle, perfectionism isn't imperfection. It's actually spaciousness, quiet. And where do we find that? Well, we find it in the dark, don't we? We find it in the dark, when we befriend the dark. Oh, I might need you to do this again for me, Bakari. Come on up here for me. Okay, so this is the other slide, Joseph. It was out of order. This is the other book. It's called Rooted, Life at the Crossroads of Science, Nature, and Spirit. Ooh, man, it's really good. So can you read us this paragraph right here?
Excuse me. Darkness possesses its own essential grace. It is darkness that bears liminal imaging. What is that word?
What is that word? I don't know. I can't read it.
What do you say images right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to the eye doctor tomorrow. Imaginings. Liminal imaginings.
Okay. Liminal imaginings, more difficult to access in the scattered daylight. Darkness brings the restorative sleep and dreaming our bodies and physique require. Darkness takes the harried busyness of the day and transforms it into stillness to quiet. Darkness brings us starlight. Darkness erases our view of the horizon, forcing our reliance upon the spacious inner vision that daylight cannot provide. Darkness offers a complex refuge for all beings and all aspects of being. As John O. Donahoe puts it, trees, mountains, fields, and faces are released from the prison of shape and the burden of exposure. Each thing creeps back into its own nature within the shelter of dark.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thanks, Bakari. I know, right? So, and who she quoted? And it's in this book. I almost quoted you that paragraph until I realized she was going to quote it. What if we befriended our darkness? What if we, befriended darkness in the first place, meaning not doing, not hurrying, resting, taking a break, not vegging out, not escaping, but sitting in the quiet, in the silence, with nothing, right? That's what negative space is artistically. It's no-thingness. Oh, wait, that sounds like spirit, doesn't it? No-thingness, until it's a thing. Spirit matter. Matter spirit. Do you see? So when we're playing in the light, we're playing on the matter side, actually, because everything is available to us, seen, and we can play with it and create and artistically manage our lives. But when we are in the spirit side, we're actually in the dark, which we forget. Sometimes we forget it because we are in a Judeo-Christian Western culture that has left the feminine sensibility behind. The feminine sensibility in the goddess traditions is to go down into the earth, into the cave, into the womb of the mothers, and there to find truth in the darkness. It's messy and organic. It's where the roots are growing. Roots require darkness. Only the leaves need the light. And do you see when a tree grows, it grows in both directions simultaneously? We have been taught in our new thought and science of mind that we tend to live from the head up. And goodness sakes, couldn't we live from the heart? And so many of us that have done that work, the problem is now we live from here up. And we don't, God forbid, want to have any personal passion, right, which comes from our solar plexus, or our creativity, that power of creativity, or the rootedness of the passion and the fire of life itself. Yeah, we neglect the bottom three chakras altogether because we're constantly wanting to go to the light. And for me, when I stand and sit in meditation, the very first thing I do is center myself in the deep, ground in the earth, and only then open to the light, because without the grounding, the light can be blinding, and it's actually not whole. Do you see? Spirit without you is not whole. Spirit without creation is not whole. You are a place where life and light are making love are making themselves known, but they are making themselves known through our very humanness. All those things we want to fix, avoid, make perfect. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't have false beliefs or things in our subjective mind that aren't there due to trauma. Of course we do. And we do want to grow. But when we avoid the darkness within ourselves, not only are we avoiding doing the work, as Carl Jung talks about, on our shadow side, all of those things that we're trying to, well, not so admirably fix. Quite frankly, we're trying to cover up, and we hope nobody notices. What we do then is we press it all into the shadow. And of course, it leaks out everywhere, and everybody notices, just not us. And so the hard work is to go into that, to bring the light to the darkness, not to make the darkness wrong, but to be able to see it, see what is there, to bring light to it gently, quietly. John O'Donohue talks about how the light is gentle in the dawn, that it creeps over the earth, awakening. We think of the brilliant Texas sun, noonday. No, not frying it. Awakening it. And allowing it to be revealed. Carl Jung also hints in his writings, and a lot of people have picked up on it, he talks about the gold in the shadow. It has become known in the self-help and new thought movements, whole arenas, it has become known as the golden shadow. Jung doesn't actually use that term, but he alludes to it. He talks about how our very greatness is as equally set aside. Because as Marianne Williamson says, our light frightens us even more than our own darkness. And so it is in the dark that we confront. We confront our fears, our unease, our anxiousness, and we have to allow ourselves to be uneasy and anxious, or we'll always just keep trying to cover it up. Read a good book, watch a movie, turn the light on for God's sakes. What if we just sat there and let it reveal itself to us? We would find there not only the shadow side that we've disowned, that we might have to clean up, but our greatness as well. The very quirky, unique, slightly weird, definitely odd way in which we ourselves see the world. And in our desire to be normal, accepted, liked, perfect, we've disowned not only our shadow, but also the very things that make us us. The humanness of us. The beauty of the very unique presence that we are. And so to be whole is to embrace. I have always loved this image, the yin-yang image, is to embrace the wholeness of life. And as it was explained to me at one point by a Buddhist monk, he said, you don't understand. They're not eternally chasing each other around the circle, but in every darkness, the light is growing. And in every light, the dark is growing. And they are forever morphing into each other. That's what's going on here. They're forever morphing into each other because the light is revealing something and the darkness is emerging in some powerful way. And the darkness is revealing something and the light is emerging in some powerful way. And this is eternally and continually going on. And this is the wholeness, the breathing, the inhale and the exhale, the doing and the growth and the resting, the awareness and the light and the centering and the going deep. Do you see? And so it is in the wholeness that we grow in the art of the expression and co-creation of life. It is in our wholeness that we become the true artists, that we become fully co-creative in being who we really are and revealing the beauty of the intangible, invisible, through and as the very visible lives that we have. Do you see? So I really invite you this week, through the rest of this holiday season, I want you to set aside having a perfect meal, a perfect family moment, a perfect tree or a perfect menorah, or a perfect solstice holiday, or a perfect anything. Allow the holiday season to be a moment of wholeness. We need the dark to see the lights on the houses. We need the light of each other's laughter to feel the subterranean connections, despite the fact that people in our family make us crazy. Right? That's the wholeness of it all. So I want to close with this quote, which I have to turn around because I can't read it over there. To find the divine in the sunset is to shadow the landscape with the softness of its beauty and the glow of its presence. To discover the divine in the rising sun is to bathe the world in the atmosphere and conviction of eternal newness of the Ancient of Days. And to find divinity in each other proclaims the impersonal personalness of that which forever peoples this and all the world with the divine presence, the all-pervasive and complete reality. Do you see the divine is in the dark and the light and each other? It's in all of it. And it is as we embrace that in its fullness that we become whole. I invite you to your wholeness this holiday season.